In recent months, we have seen Cadillac fill out their EV product line with the Optic and Escalade IQ, supplementing what they have with the Lyriq, which is the best-selling EV in its segment. But for those of you looking for a larger EV with a third row, and you don't want to spend over $120,000 for the Escalade IQ, well, you're in luck with the all-new Vistiq. This could be a very important piece to the Cadillac product line because it's a vehicle that isn't necessarily too expensive in its market for an EV, and better yet, it does have some styling elements and technology from that larger Escalade. In today's video, we're going to check out what the Vistiq has to offer. We're going to check out the exterior, the interior, take it out for a quick test drive, and see why, if you are in the market for a larger EV under $100,000, then maybe taking a look at the all-new Vistiq might be a great decision. Now, before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Cadillac of Norwood in Norwood, Massachusetts for letting me come down here to check out the new Cadillac Vistiq. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Cadillac inventory. So as always, let's begin with that pricing. For the 2026 Cadillac Vistiq Sport we have today, you're looking at a starting cost of just under $80,000. This is about $500 more than the luxury trim, and your only difference here between both models is the fact you have less chrome accents. So if you are looking for a lower profile vehicle in this segment, go with the Sport. However, both trims are missing out on some key features that is not giving us the full potential out of this model and platform that we have here today. I'm speaking about the Brembo brakes, the adaptive suspension, also the rear axle steering, giving you a sportier experience to this model and also a bit more performance oriented, because what you have here with the Vistiq is a three-row SUV that is going to be a rocket in a straight line. But we'll talk about that later on in this video. Now, I'm not going to dive too deep into speculation today, but the Vistiq is the EV equivalent to the XT6. And there are rumors that the XT6 is not coming back for another generation, much like the XT4. There seems to be a common theme where Cadillac is committed to going fully EV by 2030, and the Vistiq is a huge part of that. But also the Vistiq has a very important place in the market, mostly due to its size. Because at $80,000, you have a vehicle at around 205 inches in length. To put that into perspective, that's 6 inches longer than the XT6 and similar in size to an older Cadillac Escalade. So as you can tell from the outside and from far away, it looks like an Escalade, but does it feel like one? We'll talk about that when we check out the interior and also when we check out how this vehicle performs on the roadways. Now, design-wise, it does take some elements from the Lyriq, the Optic, and then also the Escalade IQ with the full LED headlights and LED daytime running lights in that cascading waterfall effect, which is a signature look for Cadillac, but it does go one step further with the lighting for that grille. Nice, classy touch and draws so much attention for this vehicle. For the lower portion of the front bumper, you are going to have gloss black trim here, letting you know that you're not going to be going off-road with the Vistiq. Now, for those of you who are wondering about its versatility and capability, you are going to have 7.2 inches of ground clearance, which should be more than enough to take on winter road conditions. Then as you make your way over to the side profile, you are going to notice the gloss black trim once again outline the wheel wells and the lower portion of the side profile. Again, gives you a two-tone look for this model, which is quite classy and upscale. We have 21-inch alloy wheels on this model, and with this being an EV, the 21-inch wheels shouldn't play a role in ride quality or interior insulation, because this model in essence is a baby Escalade IQ, so it should feel like that on the roadways, but we'll discuss that in further detail in a minute. Now, you're also going to have gloss black side mirror caps with turn signal indicators to go along with blind spot detection for added safety, and also a gloss black roof giving you a two-tone look for our model today. Then as you make your way around to the back, this right here is where I think the Vistiq looks a lot like that Cadillac Escalade IQ with the split taillight housing design, and the way it looks is very classy and super nice here for a vehicle at $80,000. What I do like too is that with the turn signal indicators, they have more of a sequential look to them. So definitely gives you more of a Euro style for an SUV from America, so I love to see that touch. For the lower portion of the rear bumper, you got that gloss black trim once again and some color contrasting accents. So really, Cadillac did a fantastic job with this model, and I have to say, their EV lineup draws a lot of attention and just might be the best looking EVs in this segment. Powering the Vistiq we have today is dual electric motors giving us all-wheel drive, but more importantly, 615 horsepower and 650 pound-feet of torque and a range of 300 miles. So not as much as the Escalade IQ, but more than enough for a daily driver in this segment. Probably more importantly though, with its horsepower and torque figures, you're probably thinking, all right, what's 0 to 60 times? We're looking at 3.7 seconds. Like I said before, this is a rocket in a straight line, and it can become a fun canyon carver if properly equipped for those higher trims with the Brembo brakes and adaptive suspension. Interestingly enough though, for those of you wondering, you do not get a frunk here. So all your practicality will be coming from the back like a traditional SUV in this segment. But I am surprised by this because you do get a frunk in the Escalade IQ. Hopping inside the new Cadillac Vistiq, you are greeted by an upscale cabin. Like I said before, I have no idea if we're getting a new generation XT6, but regardless, this is a huge leap forward for the brand. And in fact, the gap between the Cadillac Escalade and the XT6, or whatever vehicle is slotting into place beneath the Escalade, that gap is closed substantially here. And what Cadillac is doing with their EV lineup is letting you know that they are a premium luxury brand that needs to be taken seriously, especially in the EV markets, because some manufacturers are moving away from the larger 3-row SUV EV segment, but Cadillac is going all in here. And what you have is a vehicle that feels very well refined, upscale, and classy. What Cadillac is doing here with the interior materials on the dashboard, door panels, center console, and armrest. Then also there's some carbon fiber inlay on the door panels as well, along with the center console. Looks really nice. But then better yet, it comes back to the technology as well, which Cadillac has kind of fallen behind in the last 10 to 15 years. But now you have Android-based software, a full digital gauge cluster. We have stuff here that's very competitive against the German rivals in this market and price range. So let's start off with the comfort of these seats. You're greeted by power adjustable, heated, ventilated, and massaging interlock seats, much like we saw with the Cadillac Escalade IQ. It seems like Cadillac is not dropping in genuine leather, so this seems to be what Cadillac wants to do moving forward heading into the 2030s. Comfort-wise, though, there is a decent amount of bolstering and support, not as aggressive as the Escalade IQ, which I am a bit surprised by. But then again, the Escalade IQ is more grand and over $120,000, so that kind of makes sense. The comfort is really nice as well. There's a lot of cushioning and support, and they are very plush. So on those longer road trips or those weekday commutes, you will not be dealing with any type of fatigue, especially with the massaging seat functionality. Also, the driver's side does have deep position memory for added convenience. In front of you will be a heated wrap steering wheel, which feels really nice in the hands. No aggressive 10 and 2 or firm 9 and 3 grips, but I'm not surprised by that at all since this is a luxury EV. In front of you will be a full digital gauge cluster that we're seeing a lot of in the Cadillac product line, regardless of whether they're EV or they have an internal combustion engine. On the left side of the screen will be buttons that change up the layouts for this digital gauge cluster, so you can go with more of a gauge layout, and you can also adjust this to different settings for Tour and Sport. But then also you have your energy layout, your map, which is going to be Google based, then the assist layout for your adaptive cruise control, and then lastly would be a clean layout. Now this isn't super in-depth or super intuitive, but it is right in line with other vehicles in this market. Also going to have icons beneath the layouts for your exterior lighting and then also your lane centering as well. So everything is within arm's reach, but it does get even better because for your infotainment system, this is an Android-based software that we saw with the Cadillac Escalade IQ and other new Cadillac products in the lineup. Now, all your widgets will be in place well within arm's reach. However, what is great to see is that you are going to have a rotary dial and quick access buttons on the center console to get your different menus efficiently. So the dual functionality remains here for this new generation of Cadillac products. So on the screen, you'll have your vehicle status, drive modes, My Cadillac, Google Assistant, Google Play Store, your charging, camera settings, ambient lighting. And then also, of course, when you slide that over, you'll have your Wi-Fi hotspot, audio, maps, phone, and controls along with your Google News. At the bottom of the screen will be quick access icons for your home screen, but then also a more minimal layout where you can display your Google Assistant, your energy efficiency, and then also what you're listening to on the radio. Then you will have that access icon for your AM, FM, and Sirius XM. Then your navigation map, which again looks really nice here with the Google Map display. then your Bluetooth connectivity, and then lastly will be your charging menu. So from here, you can access your fast charging prep, preconditioned temperature, also home location. So everything for charging will be placed on the screen. You can scroll through all this on your own time and at your own discretion. Beneath that will be another screen for your climate control settings. So we saw this with the Escalade IQ. It's not as in-depth. This isn't necessarily another infotainment system, and you can't open or close the doors like we saw with the Escalade, which I would love to see in vehicles under $100,000, but this is very straightforward. So you can adjust your dual zone climate control up front, adjust the climate control for the second and third row. So overall, you are going to have 5-zone climate control in the Vistic, and that is standard. So great to see for an SUV at $80,000. It's also from here where you can adjust your front and rear defrosters and sync up your climate as well. Interestingly enough, though, is that from this screen, you can adjust everything that pertains to your seats, whether it's the heated and ventilated seat functionality or massaging seats as well. You can also adjust the intensity of that massaging seat functionality. So really great stuff to see here, but if you don't want to go through the screen, all those buttons will be found on the door panel, including the ability to adjust your front seats as well. When placing the Vistic in reverse, you are going to have a rear backup camera with trajectory along with a top view as well. You will have side angles, so that way you're not scraping those wheels, and you will have a trailer hitch view as well. So if you are parking on the street and there's a car directly behind you, you won't be backing into that car. So really great stuff to see. And then once you put the Vistic in drive, you will have a front-facing camera, again, giving you that better visibility. Continuing on, beneath the dashboard, you will find 2 wireless phone charging pads, 2 USB-C inputs, then of course that carbon fiber weave, which is really nice, draws my attention for sure. Then returning back to the center console, you'll have your touch-sensitive icons for your different menu layout, also your rotary dial, and then a dial for the volume. Next to that will be 2 cup holders. The standard storage compartment, there is enough room for some smaller items, but it's not super deep here, so I don't think you'll be putting water bottles or other larger tech gadgets, but enough room for a few smartphones and wallets, and there will be a USB-C input. Also above will be a panoramic moonroof, which brings in a lot of natural light to the interior. And then lastly, you will have a digital rear view mirror helping out with that visibility, since this SUV is quite large, but also when you are on those weekday commutes or longer road trips and you have people in the third row, they won't be blocking your view. Then for passengers in the second row, they're going to receive right around 40 inches of legroom, which is pretty much identical to a lot of vehicles in this market, regardless of whether they're EVs or they're fully gas powered. At 40 inches of legroom, you can easily have taller passengers sit back here and they won't be feeling cramped or claustrophobic. Also, of course, we have that higher roofline. Taller passengers will not be hitting their head on that headliner. Now, with the Vistic, you can go with a 7-seat configuration or 6-seater. We have the captain's chairs here, giving us a lot more comfort and also makes this SUV feel a bit more premier and also premium for its price point. So you can just sit back, relax. Also, you can recline a bit by about, I'd say maybe 10 to 15 degrees. So that maximizes that headroom, but then also maximizes that comfort. And the seats do provide a decent amount of support and bolstering as well. Now, also back here, you will have heated outboard seats. So again, the comfort just continues on, and you do get dual zone climate control for the second, or as I mentioned before, you have 5-zone climate control overall in this vehicle. So there's a lot of comfort here. Even though you don't have the same party tricks as what you're going to find in the Escalade IQ, there's still a lot to work with here in regards to that luxury and quality. Now, just like we saw up front, you are going to have a screen mounted on the center console for the second row, which does adjust the dual zone climate control and the climate control for the third row. So if you're one of the unfortunate ones sitting in the bleachers in the Vistic, you're at the mercy of people sitting in front of you. From here, you can adjust the fan speed and fan direction, and also there'll be the touch sensitive icons for your 3-level heated outboard seats. Also from here, you can turn on your ambient lighting as well to adjust the mood and set the tone for the interior of this vehicle. So really nice to see. Beneath that, you will find 2 center mounted air vents, 2 USB-C inputs, a 3-pronged outlet, and also for the center console, you will have 2 cup holders here as well. And then lastly, for passengers in the third row, it's not too bad, to be quite honest. I mean, you're looking at right on 30 inches of legroom, which you would experience that in an Acura MDX. You would experience that in a Genesis GV80. So at around $80,000 to start, this is pretty much identical to a lot of vehicles in this segment. But what does 30 inches of legroom actually give you? And to be honest, now this seat has been adjusted a little further up, but I don't feel that cramped or claustrophobic, and the cushioning for these seats, for the back of these seats, are really nice. So if I had to sit back here, it wouldn't be the worst situation. I've experienced a lot worse in this market. I do think, though, that smaller kids would be better suited for the third row rather than average-sized adults. However, one thing I really do like, though, is that for passengers in the third row, they get their own little sunroof here, which is really nice, brings in some extra light, so that way you're not feeling like you're sitting in a cave in the third row. Now, of course, you're going to have some shoulder room to work with here, but not like you're going to have up front. So like I said before, you're going to want to have smaller kids sit in the back here, but it is doable for sure. And obviously, they have their own climate as well, so they'll be nice and cool or warm depending on the time of year. Also back here, you will have a cup holder and also USB-C input found on both sides of the third row. Making our way around to the back one more time to take a look at the rear cargo area. Obviously, for a vehicle like the Vistiq at $80,000, you are going to receive a power liftgate. And inside, behind the third row seats, you're looking at right on 15 cubic feet of room. Now, as you guys know, I do prefer vehicles close to 20 cubic feet of room for all my camera gear. Now, even at 15 cubic feet, I was able to fit everything. That's 3 bags of camera gear, a gimbal box, and a tripod. But if I had more equipment with me today, I would have to fold those third row seats. To remedy all of this, though, you are going to have a very deep side pocket on the left side for some smaller items, maybe a couple water bottles, car detail equipment, or maybe even a first aid kit. And also beneath the floor mat, you will have another storage compartment for probably a bag or two. So there is some flexibility here with the Vistiq. It's just that if you are going on a grocery run and getting a lot of groceries and you have kids in the third row, that might be a bit of an issue. But then again, this is still a 3-row crossover priced at $80,000. If you need all that practicality and interior space, you're going to have to go with that Cadillac Escalade IQ. Now on the right side of the cargo area, you will find a set of buttons. One that automatically lowers the third row seats and they power fold back up, which is great to see. Then also the button that automatically lowers the second row seats. So let's lower the third row seats here. And when they're lowered, you're looking at right on 43 cubic feet of room, which falls right in line with many crossovers in this market, whether they're EV or fully gas-powered. So you're going to have a lot of interior space here and practicality if you are using this as a daily driver or going on a longer road trip with the family. Then, of course, with that higher roof line, there's plenty of space back here to stack on larger and taller items as well. And lastly, with the second row seats folded, you're looking at right on 80 cubic feet of room. So if you're coming from my Cadillac Escalade IQ review and you're looking at the numbers, you're like, all right, that's not really that impressive. But I do think there's enough space back here if you are using this on a weekly and daily basis. We might not have a Vistiq with adaptive suspension, rear axle steering, or Brembo brakes. But for $80,000, we have exactly everything we have demanded, desired, and clamored for out of a Cadillac at $80,000. And what do I mean by this? Well, with the XT6, you would never look at that as being a direct competitor to a BMW X7, Audi Q7, or maybe even an Acura MDX. It missed on all the main points: performance, technology, and design. But now that Cadillac is going all in on their EV technology and they have spent years developing this platform, you see that come to fruition. You see what you have here to work with for the technology: the 33-inch curved screen, Android-based software, heated, ventilated, and massaging front seats at $80,000, and then also an SUV that looks like a Cadillac Escalade without wearing the Escalade badge. This is exactly what Americans have been wanting and demanding out of this brand for decades, and we now have that here. But more importantly, though, is that if you don't want to spend $120,000 for an Escalade IQ, or heck, maybe you don't want to spend $100,000 for a gas-powered Escalade, the Vistiq is a great alternative in the lineup. I also think it's a great competitor to a BMW iX, Audi Q8 e-tron, and maybe even a Rivian R1S. That's how far I'm going with this model, because I think what Cadillac is doing here is giving us an SUV that truly does feel grand, upscale, and luxurious at $80,000. However, though, for this trim, we're missing a lot here. And I'm not talking about the creature comforts and amenities. I'm talking the adaptive suspension and rear axle steering. This vehicle desperately needs it. For a length of 205 inches, this thing is a behemoth on the roadways. Doesn't really look like it though from the outside if you're cross-shopping this with an Escalade IQ. But one thing I'm noticing here with this model is that when you are in the corners, no matter what speed you're going, there's a lack of maneuverability. It's cumbersome in the corners. You're fighting the wheel a lot more and you feel that weight. I think with the adaptive suspension, the rear axle steering, you're going to have that maneuverability at lower speeds, and also it will feel a bit more sporty and dynamic. Those are the two things that I'm desperately missing here out of the Vistiq. However though, from a luxury standpoint, I'm getting everything I possibly want out of a Cadillac, and that's where the gas-powered models always fell short. I think Cadillac, up until very recently, was not very competitive with BMW, Audi, Mercedes-Benz, and I think even some Japanese rivals. Now though, that's a completely different story. I think Cadillac is paving the way for what EVs need to be right now in the 2020s. And also another thing too is that Lincoln isn't in this market yet. Tesla isn't in this market yet. Sure, they have the Tesla Model X, but they don't have a large 3-row SUV. One thing I will say though is that with the Vistiq, despite the fact that it is smaller than the Cadillac Escalade IQ, it feels like an Escalade. It is quite large on the roadways. You feel that being behind the wheel. You sit very high up in this model. You have plenty of visibility here with the panoramic view. The A-pillar is not too aggressive either. And then the side mirrors are decently sized. And like I said before, you have a digital rear view mirror. So you have the visibility, but the size, it feels like an Escalade. And that I think is going to translate very well for a lot of buyers who can't spend over $100,000. Now, as a daily driver though, as a family hauler and weekday commuter, it's smooth on the roadways. You don't feel the bumps and imperfections. It's very well refined, and it's exactly what luxury buyers are looking for, or premium luxury buyers are looking for, and that was never showcased out of an XT6 or an XT5. And it's now given to us here in an EV platform and with the Vistic badge. Now, as you can probably tell, I have been in sport mode this entire time, and steering input is very smooth and fluid, but doesn't give you a lot of feedback, which is exactly what I experienced with that Escalade IQ. But as we're entering this back road here, we're going to have a nice safe area to put this in velocity max mode and see what 615 horsepower and 650 pound-feet of torque has to offer and what it feels like. So let's place it in velocity max mode. Gonna come to a complete stop, and we're gonna launch it here. That's incredible. That's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. I went from 0 to 70 in like a short period of time there. And it's interesting, it's a very linear power band. So unlike a Tesla where you get that initial jolt and propulsion, it builds up to that point where then you get pushed back in your seat. But it's not nauseating, which is something I do like here. Because EVs kind of get me a little car sick, but that is really smooth. And as we turn around here, we'll see what the turning radius is like. And as I said before, the lack of rear axle steering is going to come into play here. Although, not too bad. Not too bad. The turning radius is actually quite tight. Now, on our way back, let's do one pedal drive. I did set it to high, so let's see what the one pedal drive is like. I'm not on the brake pedal right now, and it's come to a complete stop. Get it up to about 40. I'm not on the brake pedal. And it's come to a complete stop. Wow. So it truly is a one pedal drive. Now, for those of you who are new to the EV market, you don't have to go on the high setting. You can have more of a normal setting, which feels a bit more natural for an EV and also natural for a gas-powered vehicle. So I would say not go all in on the regen braking, but still though, for those of you who love driving EVs that have been owning one for a long time, Cadillac is giving you one pedal drive here. That is great to see. Now at highway speeds at around 60 miles an hour, you do hear some of that road noise. It is a bit audible, but you have 21-inch wheels, and also this vehicle is somewhat boxy. However, it does have a nice composure on the roadways. You have somewhat of a lower center of gravity with the battery placement and electric motors, so There's a bit more refinement here compared to an XT6, which is why I think Cadillac is making the right decision by going in the full EV direction. But my main takeaway here today is that the Vistiq is a smaller version of an Escalade IQ. Now, you are missing out on some creature comforts and amenities. You're missing out on some soft touch padding on the dashboard, but that's to be expected. Cadillac isn't going to go all out for a vehicle in this market that slots below their top vehicle in their lineup. But still, though, for an EV, for a Cadillac at $80,000, this really is almost a throwback to what Cadillac was all about. Where for the past 20 to 30 years, it almost felt like Cadillac, aside from the Escalade, was giving up in this market, that they couldn't compete with the Germans, they couldn't compete with the Japanese. But now with this platform, with this chassis, Cadillac has a product that they can be proud of, and they have a product that can do very well in this market, while also setting the tone for what we need to be experiencing in a three-row EV market. So all in all, after this quick test drive, after spending some time with the Vistiq today, I'm impressed from the standpoint that this feels like an Escalade. It looks like an Escalade from the outside. You have all the technology that you could want and desire from the brand, although when you go higher up in the trim levels, then you get augmented reality. You can really go all out with the Vistiq. But then also from a performance perspective, with the Velocity Max mode, the 615 horsepower, 650 pound-feet of torque, you have a vehicle that is competitive with Tesla, with Rivian, with BMW, with Audi. And that's what's really important here. This doesn't have to be a perfect product. It just has to be a vehicle that's competitive and also a vehicle that is somewhat cutting edge. And I think it does all of that. But with that being said, though, I do think if you're looking at buying a Vistiq, go higher up in the trim levels. Get the rear axle steering, get the adaptive suspension, and to be honest, I don't think the Brembo brakes are necessary. But still though, go higher up in the trim levels, get everything you could possibly want out of the Cadillac platforms right now in 2025, and really enjoy a great daily driver, and more importantly, a family-friendly EV crossover. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys next time.